Christina Rea, and welcome to Breaking Out of Breaking In, a practical filmmaking podcast about taking your creative career into your own hands and making great work that gets seen without playing the Hollywood game.
Or at least while changing the rules. Hi, I'm Brie Castellini, your other co-host, and today we're breaking down the 2023 WGA strike with friend of the pod and TV writer Brandi Nicole. Before we dive in, there is an entertainment community fund that strike leaders are asking for support to, so check the link in the episode notes and on our social media, and make sure that you're selecting film and television from the drop-down menu. But without further ado, Brandi, welcome back!
Yay! I'm so glad to be back to talk to you two again.
Yay, we're so glad that you're here. When all three of us were on the Zoom, I was like, wow, is it 2020 again? This is wild.
I know. And so much has changed in so little time, but it also feels like a very long time at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah. So little time, but so much change. So welcome back. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. Just to center us in time, everybody, because I'm sure things will change and we'll do our best to kind of keep the episode timely. But we were recording this on May 5th. So it's officially, the fourth day of the strike, because it started on May 2nd at midnight.
That's correct. Yes, that's correct.
So
It started May 1st. Well, I guess midnight is May.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So regardless, it's May 5th. It's Cinco de Mayo, Friday the 5th. And things obviously haven't changed yet, unfortunately. But I guess, from an insider, from someone who's been on the picket lines, Brandi, what do you wish is the first thing that people understood when this topic comes up?
I think the first thing that I want people to understand is that our ask of the studios is beyond reasonable. What we're asking for collectively is, I've heard two different figures. I've heard it's less than 2%, and I've also heard it's less than 3%. So even if we go with the higher one and say that it's 3%, it is less than 3% of the profits that these studios are making. And these are profits that they're getting from content that we have created. But the way that the TV and film system works here in America, we don't get to keep that copyright. We sell the copyright to studios. And then what has happened in the past is we got to share in those profits. And the way things are nowadays, it just doesn't work that way. And I just wish people realize how little that we're asking for and how so far they have not been willing to give an inch.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think when people see the figures, the holistic figures, they're asking for X millions of dollars, people kind of don't take into context that that's total. It's not individually everyone's asking for $46 million or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. There was one sign that said, "Give up just one yacht. Give up just one yacht." And that's because whoever, I wish I could credit this person or this outlet, but whichever company made the table that showed the 8 to 10 CEOs and how the hundreds of millions of dollars that they're making each year in their salaries. And it's God, you're paying this much money to the CEOs, but the workers, and when I say workers, I mean all of us, the writers, the actors, the directors, the laborers who actually do the physical production. We're not seeing that. Mm-hmm. We're not seeing that. I'm a member of WGA East because I am usually based in Memphis, Tennessee.
Sure.
I'm also a strike captain, which this is my first time being a captain. And I have to say, I almost said no because I kind of got roped into it. I asked them for a captain since I wasn't on a show. And they were like, "Hey, do you want to be one?" And I was like, maybe. And once they told me what I would need to do, it's essentially just helping to organize folks, which is something I do in other avenues, so it made sense. And I'm so glad that I did, because I'm getting so much information. I mean, I will say this week has been a little too much information, so I'm a little drained, but it's helping me to sort of stay in the loop, which for me personally, that helps me to quell my anxiety about things, because at least I know what's going on when it's going on.
Sure.
There's still a ton that obviously I can't control, and that's the hard part for all of us. But I know it's a righteous fight. And when you know that it's a righteous fight, when you know that honestly you, and when I say you, I mean you as in the collective, all of the writers, that we deserve this, that we create this shit. We create it. We create it. So it makes absolutely no sense that we are being nickeled and dimed at every juncture. And so while I'm saddened that we are in a strike. I really am. And I am by no means in a financial position to feel at ease during this time. I'm still 100% here for it, because otherwise things will just continue to get worse and worse for the worker.
No, powerfully said. And I saw someone the other day compare like the way that media profiting is working recently, being compared to like the tech boom and like the tech industry, where like everyone's obsessed with scale, everyone's obsessed with growth, but it's like to what end? Because it's growth for like two people, and all they're doing is like consolidating more wealth at the top for the people who are not doing the labor. And it's like all that profits are is stolen labor. And when you have record profits that you're not sharing with people, what the fuck is the point?
What is the point? That's so apt. It feels like we're living in a system of people who are pushing technology at all costs, that they are not factoring in humanity, what it means to be a human, and that, you know, there is a place, I'm sure, for TV shows that are technology driven, that may like cater to that crowd, speaking to those needs. But by and large, people turn to entertainment to find comfort, to escape, to find things that they relate to. I mean, we saw that during the pandemic. We were watching so many things to help us get through. And when you strip art of its humanity, you may wind up with something pretty, but it's going to be shallow, because there's no humanity that's built into it. And they don't care. That's as someone who is an artist, the mind-blowing thing to me. They don't give a fuck. Yeah. They do not care. There used to be a time, and I have to say, you know, it wasn't a time that I ever experienced, because again, I am still a new writer. But as a consumer, I remember growing up on TV, growing up loving so many different shows where I felt like the characters were my friends, or like people I wanted to hang out with, or people I wanted to be, or people I hated. But I could tell that there was love and thought and richness and complexity woven into all those stories, which is why it was so compelling. And the more that these studios squeeze us by, number one, having mini rooms where they're hiring less and less writers for less and less times to still generate the same amount of output. Like, honestly, it is no different than when we get upset about warehouses that are happening from Amazon to whatever other companies. It's the same concept, just in a different package, where they are trying to squeeze us and have as few people working as possible, where people on the lower end, like me, can barely get in, because it is rare that they're even hiring someone on our level. And then people on the other end, the upper levels, are being squeezed, because since they don't want to hire the other people on my level, they now have to do the job of 3, 4, 5 people, because they no longer have the help that they're used to helping. And so then the output is not the same, and then you don't get the same level of craftsmanship that you should. So case in point, for example, Succession. Not everyone loves Succession, but it is a well-regarded show. And, you know, I personally find it incredibly entertaining. I don't relate to those people for nothing, but I find it very entertaining. And one of the reasons why it works is because they have a full fucking staff. They have a staff writer. They have a story editor. They have writers who get to produce their shows. You don't see that. And I'm sure the showrunner was able to do that because it is such a giant hit, but many showrunners are not afforded that opportunity. And so then as a result, you have this full class of writers who never get a chance to produce. You have some writers, you know, I've had to repeat my staff writer level, which sucks, to be quite frank, and we can get into my specifics later. And yet I'm so grateful to have a job, because I have staff writer friends who have been on unemployment for over a year and a half. I know some staff writers who have gone back to being support staff, who have gone back to being assistants, or who have gone back to like door dashing or getting some other type of job, because that one job that you felt like was going to be your ticket to breaking in, and to then having the chance to climb the TV ladder, that doesn't exist anymore. That's not a thing. And this is not even to go into the way feature writers, what they deal with. I don't have any experience in that arena. I've sold one movie, but it didn't get made, so I didn't get to experience some of the concerns that our feature writers experience. But I will tell you, it is even worse than what the TV writers are going through.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about these CEOs, these executives treating art like a business and forgetting that, like, the money is not the point. The content is the point. Like, nobody loves the TV industry because of how much money it makes. Like, who the fuck cares about that? We care that we get shows like Succession that even if you don't relate to them are like works of art. We care because we
Absolutely.
get to see ourselves on screen in ways that we've never seen before, that we get to understand humanity in a whole different way. And this focus on the business side of things is so backwards. But until someone else is in charge or a strike like this forces them to at least cede some of their power, I don't see how we come out of this. Because you're right, Brandi, they don't fucking care. They just don't care.
And well, what's also frustrating is that they're not mutually exclusive, right? Like, it's not like by paying people fairly that you're really losing money. Like, they're hoarding so much wealth. It's disgusting.
That is it right there. Business affairs has existed, since I'm sure the dawn of TV, because the fact that we even make the money that we make now, the fact that we have residuals, the fact that we have pension and health, those are not things that were ever given to us. Those are things that we have always had to fight for, that we've always had to strike for, which is ridiculous. But it has just become, it's grown to a state where it is unsustainable, it is unmanageable. And Christina, you hit the nail on the head. They have so much money. They have so much money that they can actually afford to pay us and still be living fast, still be rich, high off the hog. But because they no longer are treating us as if we are creative partners, they are truly just looking at this as a spreadsheet. And it sucks that we have to use the tool of a strike to even get them to come to the table with something real. And, I will say AMPTP, they were the first to put out a statement when the talks broke down. They were ready. They were ready with their statement of how generous their compensation package was that they were offering. And I am so glad that the Writers Guild immediately put out what our proposals were versus their counters, because as we saw, time and time again, refused our proposal, rejected our proposal, refused to counter, rejected our proposal, refused to counter, over and over and over, which tells me you didn't even come to the table. No. What were you doing for 6 weeks? What were you doing for 6 weeks? Playing in our faces. That's what you were doing. Saying that we were lucky to have term employment, which, by the way, fuck you. I'm sorry that I'm cursing so much, but it is just amazing to me that someone can build something, someone can write and create something, and then you can say that we're lucky to get to have term employment off of shit that we built. It's amazing. It is amazing in the worst way. So, the Guild has been coming to the table, is still ready to come to the table. Now it is up to the producers. And I'm also glad that at we had a WGA meeting in New York. They had one. And in LA they had one, and I'm currently in LA for a room that is on strike. And so I went to the Guild meeting this past Wednesday, and one of the writers asked, like, who's the worst offender? And they without hesitation, they said Netflix, without hesitation. And so, that just lets me know, again, because they have been hoarding content and not paying us over time, they don't care. They don't care. We have to make them care. And this strike is the best way to do that.
So let's talk about kind of the big sticking points, because obviously this information exists. Adam Conover has done a good job of, like, I think he was the one who, that I saw at least, released the side-by-side of, like, proposal, refusal to negotiate, like, side-by-side, which was very helpful. But, like, from an outsider's perspective, it seems like the kind of main concerns are mini rooms, AI, residuals, and how streaming has affected them, and then the kind of like higher level turning writers into gig workers thing. Those are the 4 big things that I've seen. Have I missed anything in that list?
Those are the first ones that come to my mind as well. So I don't think so, because again, the biggest thing is the fact that, in our last, when this was first brought up a few years ago, streaming was considered new media, as
Yeah.
the wild wild west, and so the studios acted as if like, we don't know if this will even make money. And now we see, not only does it make money, it's making a lot of damn money. And so I'll give you one like real world example. I have a friend who, she wrote on a show that originally aired on ABC, and then it got moved to Hulu in the middle of the season. And so because she wrote episode 8, her episode aired on Hulu. So her first residual check, had it aired on ABC, she would have gotten a residual for around $12,000. That's what one of her co-writers, their residual was, who aired on ABC. Instead, her residual was something around $1,500, which is not enough money
1,500
to sustain you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Wow.
yes. That's not enough money to sustain you when, again, this particular friend has not worked now for over a year, has been on unemployment, even though she's been hustling and writing and trying to get another opportunity. And that 12,000 that she could have gotten if it had aired on broadcast, it's the same work.
Mm-hmm.
It was the same work. It's the same 50 to 53 pages, however long it was that she wrote. And in her case, she actually got to produce on set. So she actually even got to do more work. She produced on set, and still, no, that residual was reduced because of where it aired. And that makes, because it's the same amount of work, it doesn't make any sense. So streaming on one hand, streaming is the main sort of juggernaut. And then on the other hand, there is AI.
Yeah.
There is AI.
Mm-hmm.
And artificial intelligence is something that in every industry, we know we're going to be contending with it. However, because we all know that AI cannot generate original ideas, it can only use copyrighted material that has been fed into its system to then spit out something that answers whatever prompt that you're asking. The Writers Guild wants to ensure that that can never be a replacement for an actual human in a room who deserves a living wage. And they wouldn't even attempt anything there. I believe their answer was that they agreed to have a meeting about,
Yeah, it's like an annual meeting
once a year.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
I'm sure that'll take care of it.
We don't even want to have meetings now. There are so many meetings that could be emails. What the hell? What is that? When I read that, I was like, oh, you meant to be insulting. You were trying to. You were trying to. That's the only sort of response that I can take away from that, because we see the potential that it has to wipe out an entire class of workers just completely, and they don't even want to address it. So yeah, and going back to the mini rooms, whether that's for a streaming show or a broadcast show, when you have let's say on the small end, you only have 10 episodes, right? You have 10 episodes, you can get away with a smaller room. Still not a mini room, but a smaller room, maybe 7 to 8 writers. But when you start doing 14 episodes, some places 22 episodes, and writers are then having to both write, like they're on script, but then they're also supposed to be producing, like being on set, or they're doing rewrite. When you're doing multiple jobs and you still have to do it for a small amount of time, because they don't want to hire you for more than 10 weeks, sometimes 14 weeks, sometimes 20 weeks, you get burnt out because you're burning the candles on both ends. And it's just like, it's not sustainable financially, it's not sustainable physically or mentally. It is, from a health perspective, that is not the way to get the best output from your workers. It's just not. The system is so broke. It's like, with everything that I say, like another thought pops into my mind about how this system is so broken. And so I'm really, really glad that the WGA is sticking to its guns. I pray that we continue to do so. I know it's painful. I know it hurts. I know it's scary. And yet, what is the alternative? what is the alternative? That we just continue to let them set the course? Because if we do that, none of us will be career writers. We won't. And that's just because we're in the WGA's battle. But next month will be DGA, and then SAG-AFTRA, and then next year it's the Teamsters. So all of this shit is coming for all of us. I will say I was really, really galvanized by the meeting on Wednesday, because even though it was a WGA meeting, all of the leaders of all of our sister and brother unions actually not only came, but they spoke. They were fired up. They called it historic. They said this was the first time that all the leadership of all the unions were together in one place and on one accord. So that was amazing to see, but it just also speaks to the fact that, like, yo, it's wild out here. It is so wild that everybody has finally decided to, like, hey, we have to stick together. We have the fucking numbers. We have the numbers, but we have to stay together. So it was really empowering. And I hope and pray that we can keep this energy alive, because we need it. We need it. Right now, they have a lot of content in their vault that I know that they are relying on. That is why the picket line is so damn powerful. I was there first 2 days this week. I'm going back there today when we wrap up this call at the Warner Brothers gate. But there are places that you can picket all throughout LA. There are places you can picket at in New York. And I know we're working on places for people to picket in Atlanta. One of the main powerful results of a picket is that Teamsters won't cross. As long as there is a line of writers with signs, they will not cross. And that disrupts production. And because it disrupts production, that means it hurts the AMPTP's profits, because they're not able to make their day. And so we have to keep exerting pressure in all the ways. And for those of you who are not in LA or New York or Atlanta, please continue to amplify us online. If you are able and willing to cancel your Netflix or any other streaming services, that is also appreciated. And I guess most importantly would be to donate to the Entertainment Community Fund, as you all mentioned at the top of this call, because that is the one fund that is not for Guild members. It is for all of the other production workers whose lives are impacted. That is a serious consideration. We don't take that lightly. We're out of work. We understand that means that some of them will end up being out of work as well. So I know a lot of writers have donated to that fund, but anyone can donate to that fund. Just make sure you select film and television. But yeah, I could be on a rant for hours.
So before we move on, because I do want to talk about scabbing a little bit, because there's been a lot of misinformation floating around. Can you define what a mini room is? And not just because it's not just about how small the room is, right? There's mini rooms are often even more exploitative than that. So can you define what a mini room is and why it's so dangerous?
Sure. So a mini room is a room that employs less amount of writers than a normal room, for less amount of money than a normal room, for less amount of weeks than a normal room, but still expects the same damn result as a normal room. That is a mini room. Mm-hmm. So from every angle, it's less and less and less. And a lot of writers are accepting it because it's the only work that many companies right now are hiring. It's demoralizing, and it's again, from the upper level perspective, they have seen their income drop drastically. And then from the lower level perspective, which is the perspective that I can speak on, I can rarely even get my foot into the door of a mini room. It's really, really rare. And that is typically because they're hiring less amount of writers, they want writers who are experienced. Mm-hmm. They don't want to take a chance on a staff writer or a story editor if they can only, I won't say can, if they choose to only hire 4 writers, they want 4 writers who've been doing this game for a long time. And that I understand. But as a result, it squeezes everyone. So that is a mini room.
Aren't there also circumstances where the mini room will commence, people will pitch, but then only 1 or 2 of the writers will actually write the script? So even if you're in the room, you don't even get a writing credit. Yeah. That's a thing too, right?
That is absolutely a thing. It doesn't happen with every
Sure,
room,
okay.
But Yeah, that is also a thing too, that because it's a mini room, not everyone can get a script. And a script fee is typically around $40,000. And so that is a huge chunk of, first of all, that could be the difference between you getting health insurance or not.
Right.
So yeah, it's and then it sucks for, again, the showrunner creator, because then they're the ones who have to write the scripts at the end. And then they're just left sort of having everything passed off to them, and it's their show, so they're going to do whatever they can to try to make their show, but it puts them in a really terrible position. And then again, the art is affected. So many rooms are not, oh God, they have become the norm, and they shouldn't be. They really, they need to go. They need to go. Your second question was, I believe, about scabbing, right?
Yeah, so let's transition, because I know, like, I've definitely seen people be like, "Ooh, does this mean that, like, people are hiring?" And I've been trying to be like, no, obviously not. If that's what you took away from this strike, then you need to do more research. But can you define scabbing for us? Like, what counts as scabbing?
It's so funny too, because I have a group chat I'm in a group chat for all of the WGA East captains. Okay. And they literally just, they wanted some clarity on that this morning, because some people were being accused of being a scab. And what they wrote is that a scab is anyone who performs struck work. So in this case, it is anyone who is performing writing services, because we are on a writer's strike. So that is any actor, any director, any producer, anyone, and also any writer who is writing during this time for a struck company. That is a scab. So you can be a member, a WGA member, and scab if you decide to write for a company that you're not supposed to be writing for right now. You can also be a non-member. And if you decide that this is your time, that is scabbing. And it's going to hurt you in the long run. I do understand, I understand where you feel like this could be my big break, because this industry is hard to get into. I fully empathize with that, but you are going to shoot yourself in the foot if people get wind of it. They are absolutely taking names. I'm already seeing it. They're taking names. Thankfully, I'm not seeing a lot of instances, let me be clear. But they are taking names of any purported scabbing, and then they do a whole investigation process. And if you have been found to be a scab, you will be barred from membership. If you are already a member and you are found to be a scab, you will be expelled from membership. And for those who, don't necessarily want to ever be members, let's say there is a director who chooses to scab, but they're not interested in being a member of WGA, while we can't sanction them, we can publicly shame them. And that has definitely been our edict. So, we hope it doesn't come to that. The whole purpose of a strike is to shut down the pipeline. If we don't want this strike to last long, we have to completely fucking dismantle the pipe. I was going to say turn off the faucet, but we need to dismantle the pipe. Nothing should be coming through forth here, back. No. That is the way to apply the most pressure so that we can end the strike. Because listen, I mean, you guys know, but some in your audience may not. I'm a mother of 3. I don't want the strike to last long. My children are 2 of them are almost little grown men. Mm-hmm. They cost a lot of money to feed them. and yet I know that the best way to get what we deserve, to get what the workers deserve, is to apply the most pressure possible. That only happens if we're closing down the pipeline. So I would say to those who want to make the most use of the best use of this time, who are not yet members, use this time to write your specs, use this time to write your original material, use this time to do that, and use this time to either come join us on the picket line or to amplify our message on social media, and to network with us. And I've met quite a few people who are not members, but who are just coming out in solidarity. And it has been wonderful. It's been wonderful. Use this time in a way that is going to help you, not hurt you, because not only will you be hurting our cause, you're going to be hurting yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I think something that I don't think people understand, especially if they have never been in a union before or don't know a lot about unions, is that like the reason that it's important to dismantle the pipeline is because you have to shut off their profits that they're not sharing with you. Like usually a strike is a result of some unconscionable behavior on behalf of like the people in charge, and the only way to force them to the negotiating table is to take away the power that they've been holding over you, because it turns out they don't actually have that much power. Labor has power.
That's exactly that's exactly it. Labor has all the power, which is why so many corporations try to shut down unions, like try to stop people from unionizing to begin with, because the labor, we are the workforce. We have the numbers, and we make the shit that they're selling. we make it. And so we have to shut down. We have to disrupt their production. We have to stop their profits in any way possible. And so that's what we're doing. And we need as many people to join us as possible, because, again, we know that this impacts so many people, especially in places like LA and New York, where so much of the economy is dependent on the entertainment industry. We get that, which is why we need you all to join with us to force them to come to the table and to stop hoarding all this damn wealth.
Right.
Wealth that none of them would have without us.
Absolutely. Amen. I also just want to clarify really quickly that like writing services is more than just writing a script. It's rewriting. It's improvising or changing lines on set. Like something, I was teaching a budgeting class yesterday, and like as the strike was going on, I made sure to make this point that like, you know, the writing process doesn't end once you turn in a script. When you're on set, sometimes you realize like, oh shit, this thing isn't working. We need to rewrite this line, or hey, can we write this scene so it takes place in an apartment instead of a bar? And like those are the kinds of things that like maybe don't ping your brain as writing. Those are writing services. Those are creative writing decisions that are owned by a writer. And even if you're not a writer yourself, if you're making those sorts of creative changes to the script, that's providing writing services.
That's exactly it. That is exactly it. It's anything the area of story falls under the purview of a writer. Anything in the area of story. So, you know, some of these productions that have, I can't even say the productions have decided, the producers have decided that certain productions are still going to push through, and like, oof, good luck to them.
Because the scripts are written,
you know,
quote unquote.
Yes, in quotes, exactly. Because the scripts are written as if nothing. God, I feel for the actors. I really do. I feel for the actors who still have to say things that, you know, usually. So here's the thing, like just to speak very briefly about the collaborative process between the writers and the cast is, you know, the writers, we have the big picture in mind. We know where this story is going. We don't share that information with the cast, but we know where things are, where this train is headed. Whereas the cast, each cast member is focused on their singular character. And so while we are the gods of the universe, they are the gods of that character. They have to protect that character. And so because of that, there's a beautiful relationship where there are things that we may not catch about that character that they catch because they're living in that person. And then again, on the other hand, there are things that they don't realize that we want to take that character. And so, you know, we write a script and then there are conversations and then things are changed every time because it's a symbiotic relationship. And now one big half of that relationship is cut off. I feel for actors who have to still shoot during this time because
without their other half.
Is all I can say. Without their other half. And I know so many of them, the overwhelming majority of them don't want to. They don't want that. They'd rather the productions be paused, and they have the same message that we have, which is pay the people who are giving you the content that is making you the massive amount of profit that it's making you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I do want to transition to talking about you and all the cool stuff you've been doing recently. But just as a final button on like the strike conversations, there has been additional conversation about like other writing services. And so I'm just curious if you can kind of like clarify some things for us. So like screenwriting competitions, how are we feeling? And film festivals.
Depends, yes. So it depends on the competition and the film festival.
Okay.
If it is a competition or fellowship where the reward to the winner prize is meeting and pitching with struck companies, I would caution against submitting to them, because if you are the winner, I will say this, like, for example, with the Nichols, I believe by the time they actually announce the winners, it'll be November, I think. So that is one where I would be like, okay, I understand you submitting to that, because by the time November gets here, hopefully, prayerfully, they will, have gotten some damn sense, and they will have come to the table and we will have reached a deal. But for anything that is happening sooner than that, I would not waste my money or time and energy on submitting. Again, if it is backed by a production company or studio of some sort. This is exactly why Disney just announced yesterday or the day before that they're actually postponing their submissions for the first time, because they don't want to have to deal with that.
I had a feeling they were going to do that, yeah.
Which was great, which is, that's good. That way, though, again, we're not trying to stop anyone from breaking in. We're actually trying to create a path so that when you break in, you will actually have better benefits than what we have. Like, for example, one thing that we did agree to that they agreed to is to pay staff writers a script fee, which is not something that I received for the last show that I was on. I didn't get paid that because it was not in the deal. So I'm so happy. This is something that the Guild has been fighting for years, and finally they agreed to that. Of course, we know they agreed to that because they weren't agreeing to a lot of stuff. So at least we have that secured for future staff writers. They did this because if you write a script, you should be paid for that script. So again, to just put a fine point on it, look who is producing that competition or that fellowship. Look to see what the rewards are, because again, if you're in solidarity with us, we're not feeding anything into the pipeline that's going to go to struck companies. And I will say really quick about film festivals, I would love to go to Austin Film Festival this year. I really would. I've only gone once before. I had a lovely time. But if the strike is still going on at that time, if they're inviting studio execs, which they usually do, then I won't be in attendance. So they may end up being in a position where they have to decide if this is truly a writers' conference. Because if it is a writers' conference, then that should be the number one focus and priority. And we can still have a wonderful time, because truth be told, writers are the ones who hire writers. That's in the overwhelming majority of cases, you're getting hired because some writer recommended you to an upper level writer who read you, who decided to bring you into their room. So I'm going to be watching AFF even for my own, I would love to go, but if we're still on strike and they have a bunch of execs there, I will not be there.
And we will also include a list of struck companies in our episode notes and social media as well. The Guild has a very solid maintained list of companies and production companies who are struck. So don't worry about having to guess. We got you covered.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so that ends the rage section. I can take a breath. Ooh.
So now let's talk about some joyfulness. So I think the last time that we talked to you on the show, Brandi, I think you might have just been starting Happy Place, Happy Face.
Happy
Yes.
Face.
Oh, wow. Yes.
So you've since then you've been in 3 rooms, right? You've been a staff writer on 3 different shows.
No. So I've been in. So Happy Face was the first, where I was a writer's assistant, but I got to co-write an episode with the other writer's assistant.
Yes.
So then, since then, I was a staff writer on season 2 of Your Honor, which is on Showtime. And now, about a month ago, I started a staff writer job on an untitled Bosch spinoff that centers around Detective Renee Ballard, and that is through Amazon Freebie.
Gotcha. Okay. So Happy Face hasn't aired yet, has it? Or it has it?
No, it has not. No, it has not. And it falls into one of those things where, like, there was definitely at one point, at a couple of points, they had multiple mini rooms for Happy Face. Things kept getting pushed. Our showrunner has had to do a lot of rewriting on her own for long stretches of time. And the last thing that we heard is, because I actually ran into her on the picket line the other day, got to meet her for the first time in person, because it was a Zoom room.
Sure, yeah.
Which was great. And so we're supposed to air in September, strike notwithstanding.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. But no, it's so funny. Your Honor has already aired, but Happy Face is it still hasn't shot. So we'll see.
So tell us about that. How did you get from Happy Face to Your Honor?
Sure. Yes. So Happy Face was showrun by Jennifer Kikisio. She was a first-time showrunner, wonderful, decent human being. Love her very much. But it was a King's production, Robert and Michelle King, who, they're known for The Good Wife and The Good Fight and so on and so forth. And so because it was a King's production, one of their executive producers, Liz Glotzer, she is the one so she was an EP for Happy Face, and then she asked me if I would like to be a writer's assistant for Your Honor for a mini room. And I agreed. And because I was a writer's assistant for a mini room that lasted, I think it was maybe 4 weeks. It was, again, very, very quick. I then, once an actual traditional room was greenlit, I got to come on as a writer's assistant for about 12 weeks. And then from there, I was promoted to staff writer. And I was supposed to be a staff writer for 14 weeks, but we had a little bit of showrunner turnover and things happening. And so as a result, I ended up being a staff writer there for about 30 weeks, which was awesome. I also got to act in 2 of the episodes, which was a gift. And so that came from both of those shows being under the King's camp.
Got it. Okay. And so what was it like having your first staff writer episode, not just co-written episode while you were still writer's assistant? Tell us about that experience.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, I will say, first of all, writing the episode, not even the episode, writing the outline, I got very nervous because it was the first time I was doing it by myself. And upon starting it, that blank page, man, nothing can freak you out more. It's like, even though I had all the beats,
right,
broke the outline together as a room, but actually trying to start it just felt like, am I ever gonna be able to do this? And it took me 3 days before I wrote anything, and you have a week to do it. And then once I got in the groove, then I was in flow, and it was great. And so, yeah, it was a process. It was fascinating. It was definitely interesting to see what I came with versus what stayed, and then what didn't stay when the showrunner did put his pass on it, then versus, what the network might have wanted changed, and then actually seeing it on air. That is one of, I think, my biggest draws to working in TV primarily, is just that you get to see your work. You get to see something that you wrote have hundreds of people come together to make it, and then it's online or on TV or both. So yeah, it was incredible, and it just made me want to do it more.
That's amazing. And so is Your Honor getting picked up again? Do you know?
I don't know, because Your Honor is a funny case. Your Honor was supposed to be a limited series, 1 season, one and done.
Sure.
But it did so well for the network that they wanted a season 2. And so we did a season 2, and we were told in the middle of season 2 that this would be it. And now I'm hearing talks and deadline articles that there could be a season 3. So, who knows? We'll see. Maybe, perhaps. There are definitely some of the characters. It's funny, you start to pick your favorite characters, and I definitely have a few on that show that I would not mind their storylines continuing on. So we'll see.
Were you in LA for most of those 30 weeks, or did you split your time? Because you're obviously regularly based in Memphis.
I was in Memphis the entire time.
Wow.
Because it was a Zoom room. So I got to go to New York while I was in that room and just log in from my hotel room. Had a great time. I will miss Zoom rooms. It definitely, it afforded me the ability to be on that show without the financial strain of having to live in 2 places. So yeah, I got to, it was a gift. I'm very, very thankful for it. So the show that I'm on now is the first show that is in person, that I had to actually come out here. And I do understand, now that this is my first time being in an in-person room. Happy Face was also virtual. So I miss I miss the flexibility of a Zoom room, and I understand why an in-person room is preferable, because there's a lot that you can get from a person's body language that you don't necessarily get over Zoom, and you have a lot more opportunity to bond with your fellow colleagues than you do when it's Zoom. So I miss it, but I do get it.
And how did you get to this show from Your Honor?
Well, like I just said a moment ago about writers hire other writers, one of the upper levels that was in the Your Honor room with me, her name is Kendall Sherwood. She reached out to me because she is the co-showrunner of this show, and she, wanted to know if I might be interested. And it was funny because, usually it's like, what do you mean? Are you interested? Of course I want to work. But because it is about a detective, she was like, hey, not everyone is interested in working on a cop show. If you're not, I totally understand. And my response to her was, well, you know how vocal I am on social media about social justice in general and police brutality especially. So I just want to make sure I'd actually be helpful in the room, because that wouldn't change. And I would understand if the answer was no, but to her credit, she was like, that's actually why I thought of you, because I would like us to be as thoughtful as we can, and to keep these things in mind, and to know that, like, whatever we're creating, try to avoid propaganda basically as much as possible anyway. And so in my I did still have to have an interview because she's a co-showrunner, and I was not familiar with her co-showrunner, Michael Alimo. And so we had an interview and went really, really well. And I was very thankful to get the job. I have had to like go on a little police rant in the room once before, but it was well received. It was well received. And so it just feels like a great space to be in. This particular main character of this show works on cold cases, so they're not on patrol.
Sure.
Which I'm thankful for. I think it probably would have been, I don't know if I would have done well on a show that focuses on patrol. I don't know if I would have done well. I don't know if I would have been helpful in any way, because I feel like I would have been against every damn storyline. But so far, I have been digging the creative process, and it's been a joy.
That's amazing. I mean, I think we need more writers like you in those sorts of places, because like I love detective shows, I love mystery shows, I love procedurals, and also watching them in the year of our Lord 2023 is a different experience than watching them back when I was a teenager. And even though I still love that kind of storytelling and I love the mysteries and the episodic nature of it, boy, howdy, we get away with a lot. And when you look at media as a way to represent the world around you, I don't think that's the way we want to represent that. So I would love for the detective genre to continue, but I would also love for writers like you to be in the writer's room for them, perhaps.
Thank you. Yeah, that is, we are always keeping that at the forefront of our minds and in our discussion. I mean, one of the things that I'm excited about with this show is that it centers around a lead who is AAPI, a woman who is AAPI. And then number 2 on the call sheet is a Black woman. Then we have a Latinx woman. It's the best sort of scenario that I could have asked for. And then the sorts of stories that we've already started to like bandy about. I'm very excited about the possibilities. I'm very grateful that the showrunners, acknowledge that we all have blind spots, and they have an open door policy for, if we ever want to talk to them, and they've actually already brought each of us in to like do check-ins. It's just, I would like to see more of that across the board. I would like this to not be rare, but I'm so thankful. Because not every room has been that way. So I'm very thankful to have that.
That's amazing. And I hope that all of you get a living wage out of it. Because this is...
Listen. Right, yes, yeah, exactly. That would be, that is the goal.
Right?
That
like
is the goal.
The gig worker of it all, like... I don't think any job should be gig workers, because like if you're doing work, you should be paid and be able to live off of that. Like, we don't work for fun, even if it's fun work. We work so we can pay for our expensive apartments by the Warner Brothers lots. We do it so we can raise our 3 children, 2 of whom are grown men and hard to feed, like like we cannot divorce the reality of the point of work is to live. And it is bizarre to me that, oh, you should be so lucky. Like, no, you're lucky that we are making you so rich. Give us a little bit. Let us pay for our apartments. You can keep being rich. Well, for now. That's a different fight.
Again, that is the thing. It's like, listen, I understand people want to be wealthy. Hell, I want to be wealthy, but not at the expense of exploiting other people. And that is what is happening. It is exploitation. It may not seem that way because of the fact that we're in a writer's room, and so it's looked at in a different regard. But that's exactly what's happening when you think about how much we're being paid versus the money that it generates. It just doesn't add up. And then also the amount of weeks that we'll work in a year. Like one of my colleagues in this room, Liz Alper, who is the founder of Pay Up Hollywood. Yeah. She's very vocal, and she is just as awesome in person. She brought up a really good point that I hadn't considered, which was that, she talked to her reps about like needing to work more, and her reps were like, what do you mean? You've done 3 seasons of television in 4 years. You're killing it. And her response was something I had never considered, which was that she was like, guys, in 250 weeks of work, I've only worked 40. And when you look at, because of the fact that they're like mini room, when you think of it that way, because when you say 3 seasons, you've worked on 3 seasons of TV, that sounds awesome. That sounds amazing. But then when you think about, well, actually, how many weeks out of the year did you work? It tells a different story. And so I don't mind working a gig when I choose to. Like if I want to take a musician gig, if I want to do a theater show, if I want to drive, whatever it is, if I'm choosing to do this because I don't want the golden handcuffs, that's one thing. Then it's my choice. I don't want that to be forced upon me. And certainly not in a profession that traditionally has been a viable career path. That shouldn't exist. A gig economy should be something that a person chooses, and not because they have no other options, because that's not a real choice.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I also think it's worth remembering that, like, even those, like, outside of those 40 weeks that she's actively working, like, how much unpaid work is she doing in between there?
Oh my God.
Unpaid work for people who are getting paid to meet with her for her unpaid work.
Oh, yes. That's oh my gosh. Yes, that's exactly it. Like right now, I am in LA. I am subleasing an apartment. It is very expensive, and I've gotten it through June 14th because I just figured, like, hopefully we'll be done by then, and then I can find another place that's a little bit cheaper to be out here through the duration of my contract. But if this strike hasn't ended by then, I'm going home. I'm going home because I can't manage 2 households when there's no income coming in. I can barely manage 2 households when there is, but certainly when there's none, it is not possible. And so I'm planning to use this time to work on my own personal stuff, just to make the most use of this time, because otherwise, it will feel like I will tell you, I will just be transparent. It's $2,300 a month for this this furnished 1 bedroom.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
This is a lot of money.
We live in the same apartment complex, Brandi and I. We just figured this out. And I live in a 1 bedroom, not furnished, and it's not that much cheaper. It's ridiculous pricing. And
that is more than the house that I rent in Memphis, Tennessee. And so, there's so much that we are asked to do for free for long periods of time. And we are just at a point where we can't keep doing it. This is why people are quitting. This is why, and especially women, especially people of color, we don't have the luxury. Like I fully admit that the fact that I'm even able to pay for this apartment right now, it is because of my staff writer salary. And I'm still walking on a very thin line. I'm walking on a very thin line with like little room for, little margin for error. And yet I know that, some people don't even have that, because this industry is so, it's an expensive industry to try to get in and stay in. And that some of that can and should be alleviated by paying us what we're worth.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, I think that's ultimately what it's about. If they force you to live in a place that's this expensive, they should, at the very least, pay you enough to stay here. And if they're not willing to do that, then I guess they're not getting any new shows from us. So,
yeah.
Brandi, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us. Congratulations on your career so far. It has been such a joy watching you go from my remote coworker at a crowdfunding company to a kick-ass strike captain and TV writer.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so good to talk to you guys both. I can't wait till we can do it in person, but thank you for having me. We appreciate all the writers. We really do appreciate everyone's support.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Where can people find you online to follow your exploits as we have?
Sure. I am on almost every, mostly Instagram and Twitter as Creatively B. And I think my TikTok name is Fire, Art, and Joy, because I talk a lot about organizing and things like that over there.
Oh, thank you, Brandi.
Thanks so much to Kelsey Rauber for our theme music, Kaylee Brown for our podcast art, and to all of you for listening. Links to learn more about them are in our episode description.
And thank you to our Booby VIPs who are our $10 supporters on Patreon, patreon.com/breakingoutpod. If you want a shout out at the end of every episode, just like our great friends Brandi Nicole, Kelsey Rauber, and Norman Steinberg.